Hello everyone, and welcome to movie review number 13. I'll be rounding out the Men in Black trilogy with Men in Black 3, which came out in 2012. Now the first movie in this trilogy, Men in Black 1, was great. The second movie was pretty mediocre, and I'll be honest, I wasn't really expecting much from this third movie. But it turned out that it's not terrible. I mean, it's definitely better than Men in Black 2 for a variety of reasons. It tries to experiment and take on a new plot. It attempts to be a little more complex with some time travel, and it ties in character development from the first movie. And there's not as many stupid gags and one-liners. I mean, they're still in there. It's a Men in Black movie, what do you expect? But they did kind of tone it down from the second movie. So Men in Black 3 is basically a revenge story about a villainous alien named Boris the Animal. He's basically a hairy humanoid with weird teeth and cylindrical implants for eyes. And I mean, this is biologically plausible, but the superhumanoid aliens are always really boring. Although he does have these weird orifices in his hands that are used to store a smaller symbiotic alien creature that can shoot deadly darts. And so when it's in his hand and he holds up his hand, he can shoot darts out of it. His feet also have these weird claw things that radiate out from the edges and anchor him to the ground. These same weird little claw-like lobes that come out of his feet, you also see those around his eyes, and I'm not really sure what they're supposed to do there. It just seems like his whole body is covered in these little flapping pseudo-clawed fingers, and so he's just got all these protrudy bits that just make him look weird. These are strange features that I wouldn't expect them to evolve naturally. Unless the boglodite species that Boris is was some kind of super predator or something that lived in a near constant state of combat. I mean, it's cool and all, it's got the cool factor, but it just seems unrealistic. It's the kind of hardcore, crazy, spooky, intense look that you give to aliens when you intentionally want them to look scary and intimidating. But it ultimately boils down to just taking a human body and adding a couple weird, creepy bits to it, which puts it on the same level as Star Trek with its rubber forehead aliens. Now don't get me wrong, I love me some Star Trek, but the rubber forehead trope is way too real. Anyways, Boris the Animal is in prison on the moon because in 1969 he's said to have committed a murder. He was attempting to do worse things, but he was stopped by Agent K, who blew off his arm and got him imprisoned. So in the beginning of the movie, Boris escapes. He escapes from his moon prison, and he goes back in time to 1969 to kill K. This creates a new timeline, with a new Boris in 1969 parallel to the original Boris, and it alters everyone's memories in the present, except for Agent J, who's the only one who remembers Agent K. After some exposition at MIB headquarters, J is allowed to go back in time. Kind of casual, go back in time, mess up the timeline, who knows, whatever, good luck. Anyways, he's allowed to go back in time to chase down and stop Boris and save Agent K. He meets up with a young Agent K, who immediately arrests him and almost neuralizes him for telling him all of these MIB secrets. But then he's convinced that J is actually there from the future, he's there to protect him. So working together, they try and track Boris down, and as they do so, they come across another alien named Griffin, who's also humanoid, except for the fact that he has a super strange skull and head that's like a puzzle piece with a face on one side. It doesn't fully enclose his brains, but he doesn't really have brains. Where his brain should be, there's just some kind of weird light energy. I don't even understand what they were going for with this, except to maybe try and portray Griffin as being some kind of ethereal, mystical, powerful being that doesn't quite follow the standard rules of biology and physics. Or maybe they're just following the rule of cool, I don't know. Griffin is kind of a weird character. He's a mixture of helplessness and extreme utility, and he's kind of used as an ex machina plot device. He can see other timelines, he can see the future if certain actions are taken, and he tells the characters whether their actions now in the present will lead to good or bad outcomes in the future. Now I know that a character like Griffin with these abilities, it's topical and it fits into the time travel plot, But time travel itself is kind of an overused and sloppy plot tool that creates a lot of problems. And throwing this guy in to clean it all up and make it all nice and simple and easy to digest for both the viewer and the protagonist, well, that has the effect of kind of cheapening the suspense. It's hard to feel a genuine fear for the safety of the characters and really get into it if you know that there's this massive discrepancy in power and ability. I mean, Boris the animal is just that. He's an animal. He's an aggressive psycho weirdo with one arm. And Griffin, in contrast, is this fifth dimensional being that can see the future. I mean, it's not really much of a competition. So anyway, Agents J and K are able to stop both the past and present versions of Boris. And they also go and attach a shield to the space shuttle it's about to launch. Remember, it's 1969. And the shield is part of the greater plot of the movie. The shield goes up and it protects the Earth from the Boglodite invasion. And Boris is a Boglodite, and he was trying to weaken the Earth or lay the groundwork or something so that Earth could be invaded. So by putting the shield on the space shuttle, Agents J and K save the Earth again, and the movie ends. It's a happy ending. Yippee. This kind of happy pablum generally makes me dislike a movie, but there were a couple scenes that I really liked, and they kind of saved the movie for me. Scene after scene, you had Josh Brolin doing a really excellent job portraying a young Agent K. You can really see the connection between this young character and the older version of the character portrayed by Tommy Lee Jones in the earlier movies, and in this movie, that makes the character very internally consistent. You can see a lot of things in a young K and how they would have become more disciplined with time, or maybe less disciplined with time as he kind of let some things go, and he became kind of the sillier older guy. It's cool because you see this character development, and Josh Brolin's portrayal of the character is really well done, and so it really fleshes him out, and it's cool, and it's the kind of thing that cinema is all about. There's also a scene near the climax of the movie that's a quick throwaway to a supposed alien UFO footage. In the real-world footage, it's looking at the launch site, and you can see that there's these two strange lights that are flying in this irregular flight pattern near the shuttle before it takes off. Naturally, this has sparked a lot of curiosity, and there's a lot of real-world wonder about what those are. But in the movie, it's portrayed as Agents J and K coming to the launch pad on little personal flying vehicles. So that's kind of cool that they had that little Easter egg thrown in there. There's another scene near the end of the movie that I also thought was really good. There's a military colonel who almost stops J and K, but Griffin holds his arm and shows him the future and convinces him to help them. The colonel ends up getting killed by Boris the animal. He sacrifices himself to save Agent K and to protect and preserve the future that Griffin showed him. What happens next is a little boy comes up and asks Agent K what happened to his dad. Agent K neuralizes him and then tells him that his dad is a hero. While all of this is going on, Agent J is watching from afar, and he realizes that the young boy is him. The colonel who was murdered by Boris was his father, and Agent K has been watching over him this whole time, presumably protecting him from aliens, or grooming him for service in the Men in Black. The details aren't really expanded on, but the scene puts the whole series in a new light, especially the first movie, where Agent K first identifies and chooses Agent J to be a recruit, and then his partner, and it's then revealed that he is a replacement. It just adds a whole nother layer of depth to it all, and I appreciate that. I think that's pretty cool. As far as the plot goes, Men in Black 3 isn't bad. It's definitely not as bad as its predecessor, but it's not particularly great either. It introduces time travel, which usually just kind of fucks stuff up, and turns any hope of plot consistency into an unrealistic pipe dream. For example, the reasons for Boris being in 1969 in the first place aren't really fully explained in a way that makes sense. It says that he's there to, start the Boglodite invasion, so okay, but why is he at the launch site? Well, he committed a murder there, but he only committed a murder there because Agent K was there to fight him, and the colonel got in the way and died. So there's definitely some problems with causality here. But this is all part and parcel with time travel, so I'm gonna kind of give him a pass on it, and it's not biology either, so it's whatever. Overall, I'd give the plot a 5 out of 10. Now, as far as science and biology are concerned, the movie's kinda neutral. In the beginning, there's a scene where Boris blows a hole out of the wall of the moon prison, and there's an explosive decompression that sucks all the guards out. But the suction keeps going. It's like a wind tunnel with this persistent flow of wind. And the lady who was there who helped Boris escape, she gets sucked out after a few dramatic moments of hanging onto his hand for dear life. And Boris, it's shown how cruel he is, how much of a bad guy he is, because he's like, oh, well, sucks to be you, honey, and let's go over. The reason this is stupid is because this isn't how explosive decompression works. And anytime a movie portrays it this way, and this happens so often, anytime this is portrayed like this, I immediately think less of the movie. From a biological perspective, there wasn't nearly as many weird aliens to examine. There was mostly just Boris and Griffin, and both of them are very humanoid aliens. One of them just has rubber forehead modifications, and the other one isn't even really a normal biological entity. He's some weird fifth-dimensional being. So for biology, I'd give this movie a 4 out of 10. It's not very good. One of the lingering questions I always have is, where do these darts keep coming from that Boris keeps shooting out of his hand? They look pretty hard, like he's shooting these massive chunks of bone out. How much milk does he have to drink to replace all that calcium? It's just kind of stupid. But in general, Men in Black 3 is a decent movie. It's way better than the second, it's not as good as the first, but it's a solid way to kill an hour and a half.